My name is Patricia Morrison. I'm 68 years old, and what I'm about to tell you might sound impossible, but every word is true. Imagine waking up on your birthday to discover your only son, the child you sacrificed everything to raise, has listed your home for sale online without your knowledge. Not just any home, but the Victorian house your late husband left you, filled with 40 years of memories. For the next 72 hours, I had to hide in my own attic, while strangers wandered through my bedroom, touched my belongings, even opened my refrigerator to judge what I ate. But here's the part that still takes my breath away. The highest bidder, who wired $1.2 million cash, wasn't a stranger at all. He was someone from my past I hadn't seen in 50 years. Before I continue, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this story. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? I'm curious to know where in the world my story is reaching. All right, let me take you back to that morning. The clock read 6 o'clock a.m. when I opened my eyes on March 15th, my 68th birthday. Sunlight filtered through the lace curtains Roger's mother had sewn 43 years ago, casting familiar patterns on my bedroom wall. 5 years since Roger passed, and I still couldn't bring myself to sleep on his side of the bed. Our Victorian house in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood had been Roger's pride. 3 stories of crafted woodwork, original hardwood floors, and that wraparound porch where we'd spent countless evenings watching the seasons change. He'd inherited it from his parents, and we'd raised Kevin here, celebrated 35 Christmases, hosted his high school graduation party in the backyard. Every corner held a memory. I shuffled to the kitchen, my knees protesting more than usual. The copper kettle Roger bought at an estate sale whistled as I prepared my single cup of Earl Grey. This was supposed to be a quiet birthday, maybe lunch with my neighbor Susan, perhaps a call from my niece in Seattle. Kevin hadn't mentioned any plans, but then again, he rarely remembered my birthday without a reminder. At 7:30, my phone rang. Kevin's name flashed on the screen. "Mom, I need to tell you something." His voice was tight, urgent. No happy birthday, no greeting. "Good morning to you too, sweetheart. Is everything okay? Check your email, right now." My hands trembled slightly as I opened my laptop. One new message from Kevin, subject line, "Urgent! Read now." Inside was a single link to Zillow. I clicked, and my coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. There was my house, my home, listed for sale. $850,000. Charming Victorian in prime location. Estate sale. Priced to move quickly. The photos were recent, taken when I'd visited Susan last weekend. Kevin must have been here while I was gone. I called him back, my voice shaking. "Kevin Morrison, what have you done?" "Mom, listen. You listed my house? My house?" "I signed with Monica, the broker, 3 days ago. She says we can get multiple offers by 3 days ago?" I sank into Roger's old leather chair. "You've been planning this behind my back?" "Mom, I'm in trouble. Real trouble. I owe $400,000 to some business partners. The crypto investment I told you about last year, it tanked. They want their money by Friday, or they'll sue me. Maybe worse." Through my shock, I heard him mention something that made my heart skip. "Walt Brennan's already on the list to view it. Remember him? Your old friend from high school?" Walt Brennan. I hadn't heard that name in decades. How did Kevin even know about Walt? "Kevin, this is my home. You can't just—" "The first showing is in 2 hours, Mom. Please, just clean up the master bedroom. Monica says presentation is everything." The line went dead. I stood there among the scattered pieces of my favorite mug, the one Roger had given me for our last anniversary together, and felt my entire world tilting off its axis. In 2 hours, strangers would walk through my door, evaluating my life like items at a garage sale, and somewhere in that stream of strangers would be Walt Brennan, the man who'd proposed to me the summer before I met Roger, the one who'd said he'd wait forever, the one I gently turned down for the steady, sweet accountant who became my husband. My hands were still shaking as I picked up the broken ceramic pieces. Each shard caught the morning light, fragmenting it into tiny rainbows on the floor. Funny how something whole could shatter so quickly, so completely, just like the life I thought I knew. Kevin arrived at 8:45, earlier than I'd ever seen him awake on a weekday. With him was a woman in her 30s, all sharp angles and aggressive energy. Red power suit, stilettos that clicked like gunshots on my hardwood floors, and a smile that never reached her eyes. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm Monica Chen. Sorry, Monica Richards," she corrected quickly, extending a manicured hand. "Your son has told me so much about you." I didn't take her hand. "He apparently hasn't told you that this house isn't his to sell." Monica's smile tightened. "Oh, but it is." She pulled a document from her leather briefcase. "Power of attorney, signed and notarized. You gave Kevin full authority to handle your affairs." I snatched the paper from her hands. There it was, my signature, except it wasn't. The P was too loopy, the Morrison slanted wrong. I'd signed my name thousands of times over 40 years of marriage certificates, tax returns, permission slips. This wasn't mine. "You forged my signature." I looked at my son, really looked at him. When had the sweet boy who used to bring me dandelions become this desperate stranger? Kevin's face crumpled. "Mom, please, you don't understand. These people, my partners, Tony and Marcus, they're not the kind of guys who accept apologies. I need this money." "So you committed fraud?" "Forgery is a felony, Kevin. A federal crime when it involves real estate." Monica interjected smoothly. "Mrs. Morrison, no one's talking about crimes here. We're talking about a son trying to help his elderly mother transition to a more manageable living situation." "Elderly?" I stood straighter. "I'm 68, not 88. And I'm not transitioning anywhere." Kevin dropped to his knees suddenly, grabbing my hands. Tears streamed down his face. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. "Mom, you won't report your own son. You never could discipline me, remember? When I crashed Dad's car at 16, when I dropped out of college, when I needed money for the wedding that didn't happen, you always protected me." He was right. I'd always been the soft one, the one who made excuses, who smoothed things over. Roger used to say I was enabling Kevin, but I couldn't help it. He was my baby, my only child after 3 miscarriages. "This is different," I whispered. "No, it's not. It's just money. The house is worth $850, but Monica thinks we can get more. That Brennan guy, he offered cash, sight unseen, $1.2 million. Monica's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't meant for Kevin to reveal that yet, I could tell. Walt had offered $1.2 million? Without even seeing the house? That didn't make sense. Walt had been in commercial real estate before retiring. He'd never make an emotional purchase. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension like a blade. "That'll be the first viewing," Monica chirped, checking her phone. "The Johnsons, young tech couple, very motivated buyers." "I'm calling the police," I said, reaching for my phone. Kevin grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop me. "You do that and I'm dead, Mom. Actually dead. These guys don't play. They already know where you live, where Susan next door lives, where your niece Emily works in Seattle." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm telling you the truth." He was almost screaming now. "For once in your life, can you just help me without making it complicated?" The doorbell rang again, more insistent. Monica clicked toward the door in her heels. "I'll let them in. Kevin, perhaps you should give your mother a moment to compose herself." As she opened my front door to strangers, I heard her bright voice. "Welcome to this stunning Victorian gem. You're going to absolutely fall in love with the original hardwood floors." Kevin stood up, straightening his wrinkled shirt. "Mom, just go upstairs for an hour, please. Let me handle this." I looked at my son, 32 years old, still asking me to clean up his messes, still expecting me to disappear when things got uncomfortable. Roger would have known what to do. Roger would have stood firm. But Roger was gone, and I was alone with a son I no longer recognized and a house full of strangers about to inventory my life. I retreated to the powder room as the Johnsons toured my living room, their voices carrying through the thin door. "God, look at this wallpaper. So dated. We'd have to gut everything." "The bones are good, though. Knock down this wall, open concept kitchen, maybe add a media room where that ancient library is." Ancient library. Roger's sanctuary, where he'd spent evenings reading Steinbeck and Hemingway, where Kevin had done homework at the oak desk that had belonged to Roger's grandfather. For 3 hours, they came in waves, 6 different groups, each with their own vision of destroying what Roger and I had built. I moved from room to room like a ghost, always one step ahead of the tour, hiding in closets, the basement, finally climbing the narrow stairs to the attic. The attic had been Kevin's childhood fort, then teenage refuge, now storage for 40 years of Christmas decorations and photo albums. Dust motes danced in the light from the single window. I could hear Monica's heels below, her practiced pitch about original crown molding and excellent school district. "The owner is very motivated," Kevin's voice drifted up. "My mother needs to transition to assisted living. Early-stage dementia, you understand. So sad, but we want what's best for her." "Dementia?" I pressed my hand to my mouth to stifle a gasp. How easily the lies rolled off his tongue. I pulled out a box labeled 1973 to 1975 and opened it carefully. There, on top, was a photo from Portland State University's spring formal. Me in a powder blue dress I'd sewn myself, standing between Roger and Walt. Roger, sweet and earnest in his borrowed tux. Walt, confident and handsome, his hand almost touching mine. 3 weeks after that photo, Walt had proposed. 3 months after that, I'd married Roger instead. Walt had left Portland after that, built his fortune in California real estate. I'd followed his success in the alumni newsletter, shopping centers, office buildings, early investor in Amazon. Never married, the articles always noted. Now he was back, and somehow involved in this nightmare. "Mom?" Kevin's voice came from below. "Mr. Brennan is here for the private showing." My heart hammered as I descended the stairs, each step feeling like a betrayal of the young woman in that photograph who'd chosen safety over passion, steady over exciting. But when I reached the landing and saw Walt standing in my foyer, 50 years collapsed into nothing. He was 71 now, silver-haired where he'd once been dark, lines mapping a life I hadn't shared. But his eyes, those green eyes that had once promised me the world, were exactly the same. "Patty?" His voice was deeper now, but still carried that hint of Boston from his childhood. "Patty Sullivan? My God, it's really you." I was aware suddenly of my appearance. No makeup, yesterday's cardigan, hair I hadn't properly styled in months. "Hello, Walt." Monica looked between us, calculating. Kevin shifted nervously. "I heard about Roger," Walt said gently. "I'm so sorry. He was a good man." "The best," I agreed, and meant it. "Mrs. Morrison," Monica interrupted. "Mr. Brennan is interested in making an immediate cash offer. Perhaps we could discuss—" "I'd like to see the house first," Walt said, but his eyes never left mine. "If that's all right with you, Patty." The way he said my name, like he'd been waiting 50 years to say it again, made something flutter in my chest that I'd thought had died with Roger. "Of course," I heard myself say. As we walked through the rooms, Walt asked questions that had nothing to do with square footage or property values. "Is this where Kevin took his first steps?" Pointing to the hallway. "Did Roger ever finish that model train set?" Glancing at the basement door. Kevin grew increasingly agitated. Monica kept trying to redirect to investment potential and comparable sales. In the master bedroom, Walt paused at the window overlooking the garden. "You still grow roses. Pink Pilgrim, right? You always loved those." I stared at him. How could he remember that detail after 50 years? He turned to Kevin, holding the contract Monica had prepared. "Is this your mother's signature?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Kevin's face went pale. "Of course it's her signature. She signed it last week." Walt studied the document with the careful attention of someone who'd reviewed thousands of contracts. "Interesting, because I happen to know Patty's signature quite well. We were pen pals for a while after college." He looked directly at me. "You still dot your I's with little circles when you're happy and slash them when you're angry?" I nodded, unable to speak. He'd kept my letters? "This signature," Walt continued, his voice taking on a harder edge, "has neither. Plus, the notary seal is from Johnson & Associates. They closed their Portland office 6 months ago. Monica snatched the paper back. There must be some confusion. We can clear this up. No confusion, Walt said calmly. He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. I did some research when I saw the listing. Very thorough research. It was a text conversation with someone named Detective Sarah Chen. My heart skipped. Was Walt already investigating Kevin's fraud? Mr. Morrison, Walt addressed my son with the authority of someone used to boardrooms and big decisions. I'd like to speak with your mother privately. Monica, perhaps you could show Kevin your comparable sales in the car. I'm sure they're fascinating. It wasn't a request. Monica looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Walt's expression stopped her. Kevin, let's discuss our strategy outside. After they left, Walt and I stood in my bedroom, the room I'd shared with Roger for 35 years, and the silence stretched between us like a bridge across 5 decades. You look good, Patty, he said finally. Life's been kind to you. I laughed, but it came out bitter. You're seeing me on the worst day I've had since Roger died. I know about Kevin's debts, he said quietly. The crypto disaster, the borrowed money. But Patty, there's more. Those partners he mentioned, Tony and Marcus, they're not real. What do you mean not real? I mean Kevin hired them, actors from a local theater company. He's creating this elaborate threat to pressure you into selling. The room spun. I sat heavily on the bed. How do you know this? Because I've been watching out for you. He sat beside me, careful to leave space between us. I came back to Portland 2 years ago. I've seen you at the farmer's market, at Powell's Books, walking in Laurelhurst Park with your friend Susan. I wanted to approach you so many times, but... He shrugged. You were married. Then you were grieving. The timing was never right. So you've been, what, stalking me? Protecting you. There's a difference. He pulled out a business card. Detective Chen is real. She specializes in elder fraud cases. She's ready to help whenever you are. I can't have my son arrested, Walt. Even if he's willing to destroy you? Through the window, I could see Kevin and Monica in the driveway, gesturing animatedly. My son looked desperate, running his hands through his hair the way he had as a child when caught in a lie. You know what the hardest part is? I said. I would have helped him. If he'd just asked, been honest, I would have figured something out. Maybe a home equity loan or selling some of Roger's collections. But this, I gestured at the violated space of my home, this betrayal cuts deeper than any financial loss. Walt reached over and took my hand. His touch was warm, familiar despite the decades between us. You were always too good for your own good, Patty Sullivan. Patty Morrison, I corrected gently. No, he said. Right now, in this moment, you're Patty Sullivan again. The girl who stood up to the dean when he tried to expel that Vietnamese student for protesting. The girl who organized fundraisers for the women's shelter. The girl who had such a fierce sense of right and wrong that it took my breath away. That girl chose Roger, I reminded him. And that was the right choice then. He gave you stability, family, a good life. I would have given you adventure, and probably 3 divorces by now. He smiled ruefully. I wasn't ready to be the man you deserved. But I am now. Before I could respond, Kevin burst back in. Mom, Monica needs an answer. She has 3 backup offers ready to present. We could have a bidding war by tonight. Walt stood, all business again. Actually, I'm prepared to make an offer right now. $1.2 million, cash, no inspection, close in 3 days. Kevin's eyes lit up with greed. That's perfect. Mom, you have to take this. Walt pulled out another card and pressed it into my palm. Call me tonight, Patty, after they leave. Then, loud enough for Kevin to hear, don't sign anything until you've had your own lawyer review it. As he walked past Kevin, he paused. Your mother deserves better than this, from all of us. The front door closed behind him with a decisive click, and I stood there holding his card, feeling like that 20-year-old girl again, choosing between 2 paths. Except this time, I was old enough to know that some choices can't be undone. Day 2 began with Kevin moving in. He arrived at 7 a.m. with 2 suitcases and his business partners. Tony and Marcus looked exactly like Central Casting would send for intimidating mob enforcers. Tony was built like a refrigerator, all shoulders and no neck. Marcus was leaner, but had dead eyes that seemed to catalog everything valuable in my home. "Mrs. M," Tony said, his Jersey accent thick as syrup, "your boy here owes us significant money. We're reasonable men, but patience has limits." They made themselves comfortable in my living room, feet up on Roger's antique coffee table, leaving water rings from their beer bottles on the mahogany surface. Kevin wouldn't meet my eyes. "I need my car keys," I told Kevin that afternoon. "I have a doctor's appointment." "Cancel it." He pocketed my keys. "We can't risk you doing something stupid, like reporting my son for kidnapping and elder abuse." Marcus laughed, a sound like grinding gears. "Lady, you think the cop's gonna believe you over your own son? He's got power of attorney. Far as they concerned, he's taking care of his confused old mother." I was a prisoner in my own home. They disconnected the landline, took my cell phone for safekeeping. Susan next door knocked once, but Kevin answered, telling her I was sick with the flu. That second night, I couldn't sleep. The house felt violated, every creak and whisper wrong. At 2 a.m., I crept to the top of the stairs and heard Kevin on the phone in the kitchen. "Once we get the money, we can make her disappear. Make it look like an accident. Old ladies fall downstairs all the time." My blood turned to ice. Was he actually discussing murdering me? His own mother? No, Kevin continued, and I realized he was talking to someone else, not Tony or Marcus. Not actually disappear, just put her in a home, somewhere cheap, use the rest of the money to clear my debts and invest in the new opportunity. I pressed my hand to my mouth. A home. He was planning to lock me away. "The Brennan guy is perfect," Kevin went on. $1.2 million in cash, no questions. Mom's got no idea I researched him, found out about their history. He's still carrying a torch. It's pathetic, really. Old man thinks he's riding to her rescue. Morning of day 3 arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood. Monica showed up with more paperwork, her smile sharp as glass. "Mrs. Morrison, we need to update some documents. New seller disclosures, very standard." I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Kevin had eaten thousands of meals, done homework, blown out birthday candles, and refused to sign anything. "This is getting tedious," Monica said. "Kevin, perhaps your mother needs medical attention. She seems confused." "I'm not confused. I'm being held hostage." Tony laughed. "Lady's got a sense of humor." The morning dragged on. More strangers toured the house. Monica narrated my life like an auctioneer, reducing 40 years to square footage and potential. Then Kevin lost his temper. He grabbed Roger's coffee mug, the one that said "World's Best Dad" that Kevin had given him 20 years ago, and smashed it against the wall. "You're going to kill me, Mom! They'll literally kill me if we don't get this money!" Ceramic shards scattered across the floor. I stared at the pieces, remembering Roger drinking from that mug every morning, Kevin refilling it on Father's Day breakfasts, the 3 of us being a family. "If they're going to kill you," I said quietly, "then we should call the police." "With what phone?" Kevin sneered. "Besides, you wouldn't. You never could stand to see me face consequences." He was right. I'd spent 32 years protecting him from the results of his choices. When he'd bullied kids in elementary school, I'd made excuses. When he'd cheated in high school, I'd blamed pressure. When he'd stolen money from Roger's wallet, I'd replaced it quietly. "Your father would be ashamed," I whispered. Something flickered in Kevin's eyes. Pain, maybe, or just annoyance. "Dad's dead, and his opinion stopped mattering the day he chose his precious books over paying for my MBA. That was Kevin's version of history. The truth was, Roger had offered to pay if Kevin could maintain a B average for 1 semester. Kevin had dropped out after 3 weeks. "Mr. Brennan will be here at 2 p.m., Monica announced, checking her phone. With a cashier's check, once that's deposited, this whole unpleasant situation resolves itself. I looked at my son, searching for any trace of the boy who'd once brought me dandelions, who'd cried when our cat died, who'd held my hand at Roger's funeral. That boy was gone, if he'd ever really existed outside my desperate mother's heart. 1 hour until Walt arrived. 1 hour until I found out if he was really here to rescue me, or if he was just another player in Kevin's elaborate con. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the windows like fingers tapping, counting down to something I couldn't quite name but knew would change everything. I need to pause here for a moment because what happened next still makes my hands shake. Have you ever looked at someone you love, someone you gave life to, and realized they see you as nothing more than an obstacle to their goals? If you're watching this and you've experienced that kind of betrayal from family, please leave a comment. I need to know I'm not alone in this, and if my story is resonating with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know, especially when you're rebuilding your life at 68. Now let me tell you about the 3 most important hours of my life, the hours that changed everything. The afternoon of day 3 arrived with unusual sunshine breaking through Portland's clouds, like the universe was setting a stage. I sat at Roger's desk in the library, the room the Johnsons had called ancient, and wrote what I thought might be my last letter of free will. "Dear Emily," I wrote to my niece, "if something happens to me, know that Kevin is responsible. The papers he has are forged. Contact Walter Brennan." I paused, then added his number from the card he'd given me. He knows everything. I sealed it in an envelope addressed to her Seattle office and hid it inside Roger's first edition Grapes of Wrath. Kevin would never look there. He'd never understood his father's love of books. At noon, Kevin brought in his lawyer, a man who introduced himself as James Patterson. I almost laughed, like the author. But this Patterson was no storyteller. He was another actor, I realized, noticing how he kept forgetting which briefcase pocket held his legal documents. "Mrs. Morrison," he said in what he probably thought sounded like a lawyer voice, "I need to explain the consequences of elder abuse accusations. If you make false claims against your son, you could face charges yourself." "Elder abuse?" I kept my voice steady. "Like forging an elderly parent's signature? Like holding them hostage? Like threatening to put them in a home against their will?" The fake lawyer faltered. That's not... Kevin is trying to help you. Then why does his help require actors pretending to be mob enforcers?" Tony and Marcus exchanged glances. Tony actually looked hurt. "We're method actors," he protested, breaking character. "This is legitimate theater work." "Shut up," Kevin snapped. Then to me, "They're real, Mom, real dangerous." But the spell was broken. I saw it all now, the community theater quality of their threats, the way Marcus kept checking his phone for his next audition, how Tony's menace disappeared when he helped himself to my homemade cookies and complimented the recipe. "You hired actors to terrorize your mother," I said to Kevin. "Do you understand how sick that is?" My son's face went through several expressions: anger, frustration, and finally, a cold calculation that chilled me more than any fake threat could. "Fine," he said. "They're actors, but the debt is real. $300,000 to my actual business partners, another $100,000 in credit cards. If I don't get that money, I'm finished. Bankruptcy, ruined credit, no future. Is that what you want for your only child?" "I want honesty. I want you to take responsibility." "Responsibility?" Kevin laughed bitterly. "Like you did, sitting in this museum while Dad's insurance money just molds in the bank? You could help me, but you'd rather clutch your precious memories than save your son's future." Roger's life insurance. $400,000 I'd never touched, keeping it for emergencies or to leave to Kevin eventually. But not like this. Not through lies and manipulation. The doorbell rang at 1:55 p.m., 5 minutes early. Walt had always been punctual. "Showtime," Monica chirped, checking her lipstick and her phone camera. "Remember, Mrs. Morrison, this is what's best for everyone." Kevin straightened his shirt, put on his concerned son face. The actors, because that's all they were, tried to look threatening again. The fake lawyer shuffled his papers importantly, and I sat in my violated home, surrounded by people performing elaborate lies, waiting for the one person who might see through it all. Walt entered like he owned the place, which, if Kevin had his way, he soon would. Today he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Kevin owed, and he'd brought 2 men with him. They stayed by the door, silent and watchful. "Mrs. Morrison," Walt said formally. Then his eyes found mine with a warmth that made my heart skip. "Patty, you look lovely today." I almost laughed. I looked like a woman who hadn't slept in 3 days, whose son was trying to steal her home, who'd been prisoner to a bad community theater production. But Walt's eyes said he meant it. "Mr. Brennan?" Kevin stepped forward with his salesman's smile. "We're ready to complete the transaction. You have the cashier's check?" Walt reached into his jacket, and everyone leaned forward. Monica's eyes gleamed. Kevin practically vibrated with anticipation. Even the actors looked interested. But instead of a check, Walt pulled out his phone. "Actually," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd closed million-dollar deals over breakfast, "I have something else. Something I think everyone here needs to see." He turned the screen toward us. It was a video, grainy security footage from my front porch, dated 3 days ago. There was Kevin, clearly visible, practicing my signature over and over on different documents, while Monica coached him on the angle of the letters. The room went absolutely silent. "Funny thing about Victorian houses," Walt said, conversationally. "The previous owners often install security systems the current residents don't know about. Roger was always thorough that way, wasn't he, Patty?" Kevin's face drained of color. That's not what it looks like." "It looks like forgery," Walt said calmly. "It looks like conspiracy to commit fraud. It looks like elder financial abuse, which in Oregon carries a sentence of up to 10 years. Monica was already backing toward the door, but Walt's 2 companions, who I now realized were definitely not actors, blocked her path. "Sit down, Ms. Richards," one of them said, and I noticed the badge on his belt. "We have some questions." "Mom!" Kevin turned to me, his mask finally slipping completely. "Tell them this is a misunderstanding." For 32 years, I'd answered that plea. Fixed his mistakes, smoothed his path, enabled his worst impulses. Roger had warned me, but I'd always thought love meant never letting your child fall. "The only misunderstanding," I said quietly, "is that you thought I'd let you steal my home." Tony and Marcus were edging toward the door. "We're just actors," Tony said quickly. "We got hired off Craigslist, $50 an hour to play tough guys. We didn't know about any actual crimes." The fake lawyer, Patterson, had already fled, leaving his briefcase of blank papers behind. Monica tried to brazen it out. "This is a legitimate real estate transaction. Mrs. Morrison is confused." "I'm not confused." I stood up, finding strength I didn't know I had. "I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm heartbroken, but I'm not confused." Walt moved closer to me, not touching but near enough that I could feel his solid presence. "The FBI has been investigating Ms. Richards for 6 months. She specializes in elder fraud, working with family members to steal homes from vulnerable seniors. Kevin just happened to be her latest partner." "FBI?" Kevin's voice cracked like a teenager's. "Mom, please, you can't let them—" "Let them?" I laughed, but it came out harsh. "Like you let strangers walk through my bedroom? Let actors threaten me? Let a con artist help you forge my signature?" At 1:30 p.m., more people arrived. Real FBI agents this time, with real badges and real handcuffs. They read Kevin his rights while he sobbed. Not the manipulative tears from before, but genuine terror. "It was her idea," he pointed at Monica, who was also being cuffed. "She found me at the casino, said she knew a way to get money from my mom's house without hurting anyone." "Kevin Morrison," the agent said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, forgery, and elder abuse." As they led him past me, Kevin grabbed my arm. "Mom, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I needed the money so bad, and you have so much, and Dad left you everything, and me nothing." "Your father left you $40,000 for college," I said. "You spent it in 6 months on cars and parties. He left you his entire book collection, worth another $30,000. You sold it to a dealer for quick cash. He left you love and values and integrity, and you threw it all away." "Please," he whispered, "don't let them take me." For a moment, I saw my baby boy, the one who'd had nightmares about monsters under his bed, who'd clung to me at his first day of school, who'd cried when Roger had his heart attack. But that boy had been gone for years, maybe decades. The man in front of me was a stranger who'd tried to destroy me for money. "I can't save you from this," I told him. "And even if I could, I won't. Not anymore. Not—" They took him away in handcuffs, my neighbors watching from their windows. Susan came out onto her porch, hand over her mouth in shock. The whole street saw Kevin Morrison, the boy they'd watched grow up, arrested for trying to con his widowed mother. Monica Richards was worse off. The FBI had evidence of 12 similar cases, elderly parents robbed by their children with her help. She was looking at decades in federal prison. Tony and Marcus gave statements and were released. Tony actually apologized, said his own mother would have killed him if she knew what he'd been hired to do. He left his number in case I needed a witness. By 2 p.m., my house was empty except for Walt and me. "How?" I asked him. "How did you know?" He sat beside me on the couch, maintaining that careful distance that somehow felt more intimate than touching. "I told you I've been watching out for you. When I saw your house listed, I knew something was wrong. You'd never sell this place. It's Roger's legacy. So I made some calls, did some research. Monica Richards was already on the FBI's radar. Your son just gave them the evidence they needed. You could have warned me 3 days ago. Would you have believed me? Or would you have protected Kevin like you always have?" He was right. 3 days ago, I would have made excuses, found explanations, refused to see the truth. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," Walt said, standing and finally taking my hand, "you get your life back." The FBI agents had been gone for an hour when the real truth came out. Walt and I sat in my kitchen, still mine, drinking tea from the few unbroken cups Kevin had left. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like tiny celebrations. "There's something else," Walt said, setting down his cup with the careful precision I remembered from college when he'd built architectural models that looked like art. "Something about Kevin's debts." My stomach clenched. "They're real after all?" "No, well, yes and no." He pulled out his phone, showed me a series of documents. "Kevin does owe money, but not to criminals. He owes it to 3 online gambling sites, 2 credit card companies, and a failed investment scheme he started with stolen identities." "Stolen identities?" "Including yours. He's been opening credit cards in your name for 2 years. That's why he needed the house money so desperately. The fraud investigators were closing in." I stared at the evidence, each document another betrayal. Credit cards I'd never seen, loans I'd never taken, debts that could destroy the credit Roger and I had built over 40 years. "But here's the real twist," Walt continued, and his green eyes held something I couldn't quite read. "I've already paid them all." "What?" "Every debt, every fraudulent card, every gambling site. I've paid them and had my lawyers file the paperwork to clear your name completely. You won't owe a penny, and your credit will be restored." The room spun. "Walt, that must be hundreds of thousands. 437,000, to be exact." He said it like it was nothing, like he'd bought coffee. "Plus legal fees." "I can't accept that. I'll pay you back." "With what?" His voice was gentle but firm. "Your savings that Kevin was counting on? Roger's life insurance? No, Patty. This is my gift. Or rather, my apology." "Apology for what?" He stood, walked to the window overlooking my garden. The roses were budding, pink pilgrims just like he'd remembered. 50 years ago, I left Portland because you chose Roger. I was young, proud, hurt. I threw myself into making money, thinking if I got rich enough, successful enough, I'd stop thinking about the girl who got away. He turned back to me. "But every deal I made, every building I developed, I'd wonder what you'd think. Would Patty like this design? Would she approve of this decision?" "Walt, I never married because no one was you. I dated, sure. Even got engaged twice. But standing at the altar, yes, I got that far. All I could think was, she's not Patty Sullivan." The weight of his confession hung between us. 50 years of what-ifs crystallized in my kitchen, while Kevin's destruction still littered my home. "When I saw what Kevin was doing to you," Walt continued, "I couldn't stand by. Not again. 50 years ago, I walked away when you needed a friend. I let pride keep me from being there when Roger died, but not this time." A knock at the door interrupted us. It was Detective Sarah Chen, the one from Walt's text messages, but now I could see her badge clearly: FBI, Financial Crimes Division. "Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Brennan," she nodded to us both. "I wanted to update you on the case." She sat at my kitchen table, all business. "Monica Richards is looking at 20 to 30 years. She's been running this scheme across 3 states. Your son—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Kevin is looking at 5 to 10, but with cooperation and first offense consideration, possibly 18 months minimum security." 18 months. My son would go to prison. "There's more," Detective Chen continued. "We found evidence that Kevin was escalating. The insurance policy comment you overheard? We found searches on his computer about accidental deaths, inheritance law, power of attorney over incapacitated adults. Mrs. Morrison, I believe Mr. Brennan's intervention saved more than your house." She left after taking my statement, promising to keep me updated. Walt and I stood in my living room, surrounded by the remnants of Kevin's staging: the fake legal documents, Monica's forgotten briefcase, Tony's card with his real acting resume. "You saved my life," I said simply. "You saved mine first," Walt replied. 50 years ago, when you turned me down, you did it so gently, so kindly. You told me I needed to find out who I was beyond my feelings for you. You were right. I became successful because I had something to prove. But now—" He took my hands, both of them this time. "Now I know who I am. I'm a man who never stopped loving Patty Sullivan, who respected her marriage to Roger Morrison, and who's asking for a chance to be in her life, however she'll have me." Through the window, I could see Susan and other neighbors gathering in the street, probably gossiping about the FBI cars, the arrest, the drama that had shattered our quiet neighborhood. "They'll all know," I said. "Everyone will know what Kevin tried to do." "Good," Walt said firmly. "Let them know that Patricia Morrison is not a victim. She's a survivor, and she has friends who won't let anyone hurt her again." The sun was setting now, painting my violated home in shades of gold and rose. Tomorrow, I'd have to deal with lawyers, with Kevin's legal defense, with the mess he'd made of my life. But tonight, for the first time in 3 days, maybe 3 years, I felt safe. "Walt," I said, "would you like to stay for dinner?" His smile was answer enough. I need to stop here because what I'm about to tell you next still makes me cry. Do you think I was too harsh with Kevin? Should a mother always forgive her child, no matter what they've done? I wrestle with this every single day. If you've ever had to choose between enabling someone you love and letting them face consequences, please share your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your experiences help me feel less alone. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It means the world to know people care about what happens to an ordinary woman who had to make an extraordinary choice. Now let me tell you about the hardest conversation I've ever had. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Kevin in a small room at the Multnomah County Detention Center. The fluorescent lights made him look pale, hollow. The orange jumpsuit hung on his frame. He'd lost weight already. "You came," he said, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I'm your mother. That doesn't stop just because you're in jail." His hands were cuffed to the table between us. Those hands that I'd taught to tie shoes, to write his name, to be gentle with our old cat Whiskers. Now they bore the marks of his choices. A gambling chip tattoo I'd never noticed, nicotine stains from stress smoking. "My lawyer says I should take the plea deal. 18 months, minimum security, then probation." "That sounds reasonable." "Reasonable?" He laughed bitterly. "Mom, I'm going to prison. Do you understand that? Your son is going to prison." "Yes," I said quietly. "My son, who tried to steal my home, who forged my signature, who hired actors to terrorize me, who was researching how to have me declared incompetent. That son is going to prison." Kevin's face crumpled. For the first time since this started, I saw genuine remorse, not manipulation. I never meant for it to go that far. Monica said it would be simple. You'd never even know. The house would sell, you'd move somewhere smaller, I'd pay my debts. Everyone wins. Except me. "You have everything!" The words exploded from him. Dad's insurance, the house, his pension. And what did I get? Nothing. He always loved those damn books more than me. Always chose you over me. "Your father loved you more than life itself," I said, my voice shaking. "He worked 2 jobs to pay for your baseball equipment, your car, your wedding that never happened. He died thinking he'd failed you because you couldn't seem to find your way. Then why didn't he leave me anything substantial? Because he knew you'd waste it, just like you wasted every opportunity he gave you." I pulled out a folder I'd brought. "Do you know what this is?" Kevin shook his head. "Your father's real will, the one he wrote before he died, not the simplified one the lawyer presented. He left you something worth more than money, a trust fund that would have paid you $30,000 a year for life, starting when you turned 40. Enough to live on, not enough to gamble away." Kevin stared at the document. "What happened to it?" "You happened. When you stole from his wallet while he was dying in the hospital, when you tried to use his credit cards before his body was cold, I knew he was right about you. So I dissolved the trust and kept the money in savings. I was going to give it to you when you proved you'd changed. You kept my inheritance? I protected you from yourself, just like I always have, but I'm done now." We sat in silence, the weight of 40 years of enabling between us. Every time I'd made excuses, every time I'd bailed him out, I'd thought I was helping. But I'd been building this moment, brick by brick. "I met someone in here," Kevin said suddenly. "A counselor. He says I have a gambling addiction, probably depression too. He thinks the stealing, the lying, it's all connected to Dad dying." "Your father died 5 years ago. You've been stealing and lying since high school. But it got worse after. I felt like if I could just get enough money, be successful enough, maybe I'd finally be the son he wanted. He wanted a son with integrity. Money had nothing to do with it." Kevin nodded, tears streaming down his face. "The counselor says I need to make amends, real amends, not just apologies. Mom, I'm so sorry, not just for the house, but for all of it. Every disappointment, every lie, every time I chose the easy wrong over the hard right." I wanted to comfort him, to tell him it would be okay, but that was the old pattern, the one that had led us here. "I accept your apology," I said instead, "but I don't forgive you, not yet. Forgiveness has to be earned, Kevin, through actions, not words. Will you visit me? In prison? Once a month, and I'll put money in your commissary account. $20, no more. When you get out, if you've stayed clean, stayed in therapy, stayed honest, we can talk about rebuilding." "And Walt? Are you with him now?" It was none of his business, but I answered anyway. "Walt is my friend. He's helping me repair the damage you did, not just to the house, but to my faith in people." "I hate him." "You hate that he stopped you. There's a difference." The guard knocked. Our time was up. As Kevin stood, shuffling in his ankle chains, he looked back at me. "Mom, that trust fund Dad set up, does it still exist?" "No," I lied, smoothly and without guilt. "I spent it on lawyers to clean up your mess." Let him think it was gone. The truth was, I'd moved it into a new trust, one that would pay for his rehabilitation, his therapy, maybe college if he ever got serious. But he'd never know until he proved he'd changed. No more safety nets he could see coming. Walking out of that jail, I felt lighter than I had in years. The son I'd enabled was gone, but maybe, just maybe, a better man could emerge from those ashes. Walt was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his Bentley in the rain. "How did it go?" I told him the truth, most of it anyway. And now we wait to see who Kevin becomes when his mother stops saving him. 6 months later, I stood in my garden, hands deep in soil, planting new roses beside the ones Roger had loved. The pink pilgrims were in full bloom, their scent carrying on the September breeze. "Letter for you," Walt called from the porch. He'd been coming by every day, sometimes to help with repairs, sometimes just to sit and talk. We weren't together, not yet, but we were something. Friends who remembered being almost more. The letter was from Kevin, his 7th from minimum security prison in Salem. His handwriting had improved. Therapy and time did that, apparently. Dear Mom, it read. Group session today was about making amends without expecting forgiveness. Dr. Patterson, yes, really, same name as that fake lawyer, says true amends means accepting that the people we hurt might never trust us again, and that's okay. That's justice. I got my 6-month chip yesterday. 6 months clean from gambling. They let us have a little celebration. I thought about you, about how many celebrations I ruined with my choices. Remember my high school graduation? I was high, thought you didn't notice. But looking back, you knew. You always knew. You just loved me too much to stop enabling me. I'm not asking for forgiveness anymore. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Working in the prison library, Dad would laugh at that. Taking college courses online. Real ones this time, not the scams I used to run. Learning accounting, ironically. Turns out I'm good with numbers when I'm not trying to manipulate them. Walt Brennan put money in my education account. I know you said not to contact him, but he wrote to me first. Said every man deserves a second chance if he's willing to work for it. I hate that I respect him now. Mom, I need you to know something. Those searches Detective Chen found on my computer, about insurance, about accidents, I was never going to hurt you. I was researching for a novel I thought I'd write in prison. A crime story about a son who goes too far. I know how that sounds, but it's true. I was always too much of a coward to actually hurt anyone but myself. 18 months feels like forever, and also not enough. Dr. Patterson says that's good, means I'm understanding the weight of what I did. Tony, the actor, wrote to me. He's in a production of Death of a Salesman now. Says playing a fake mobster taught him about the danger of believing your own performance. Sounds about right. I love you, Mom. Not the desperate, grasping love of someone who needs something, but the quiet love of someone who finally understands what he lost. Take care of yourself. You deserve the peace I tried to steal. Your son, working on earning that title, Kevin. I folded the letter carefully, added it to the box with the others. Maybe someday I'd let him read them back, see his journey from manipulation to what might be genuine growth. Good news? Walt asked, handing me a glass of lemonade. Progress, I said. Kevin's actually becoming the man Roger always hoped he could be. It just took losing everything to find it. And you? Who are you becoming, Patty Morrison? I thought about it, looking at my house, still mine thanks to Walt. The walls held new photos now, not just of the past, but of the present. Susan and me at the farmer's market. My niece Emily's wedding last month. Even one of Walt and me at the Portland Rose Festival, looking like the septuagenarian couple we weren't quite ready to be. I'm becoming myself, I said finally. Not Roger's widow, not Kevin's enabler. Just Patty. I like just Patty, Walt said softly. The doorbell rang before I could respond. It was Detective Chen, but this time she was smiling. Mrs. Morrison, I wanted to deliver this personally. She handed me an envelope. Monica Richards was sentenced yesterday. 30 years, no parole for 15. Your case was the one that broke it all open. 14 families are getting their homes back because you stood up to your son. After she left, Walt and I sat on the porch swing Roger had installed for our 20th anniversary. The neighborhood had returned to normal, kids playing, dogs barking, ordinary life flowing around my extraordinary survival. I have something to tell you, Walt said. I'm selling my place in California, buying a condo here in Portland, close enough to visit, far enough to give you space. Walt, I'm not proposing, Patty. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to be in your life. I waited 50 years. I can wait as long as you need. What if I don't need to wait? The word surprised me as much as him. What if I've spent enough time looking backward? Roger's gone, and I'll always love him. But he'd be the first to tell me that life is for the living. Walt's hand found mine, our fingers intertwining like they'd been practicing for 5 decades. Then we take it slow, he said. Dinners, walks, maybe a trip to the coast. See who we are now, not who we were then. I'd like that. As the sun set over Portland, painting the sky in shades of hope, I thought about the moral Kevin's counselor had shared. You can't change the past, but you can choose your future. I'd chosen. No more enabling, no more sacrificing myself for others' comfort. Just love, the kind with boundaries, the kind that says no when necessary, the kind that protects both the giver and receiver. Love without limits is not love, I said aloud. It's fear dressed up in good intentions. Walt squeezed my hand. Roger was a lucky man, Patty Morrison. No, I corrected. I was the lucky one. And maybe, if we're careful and honest and brave, I can be lucky twice. That's my story, all of it, nothing held back. Some of you might think I was too hard on Kevin. Others might wonder why I didn't press charges sooner. But here's what I learned at 68. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's the kindest thing you can do for someone drowning in their own choices. If you're struggling with a toxic family situation, remember, you can love someone and still refuse to be their victim. What would you have done in my place? Subscribe if my story touched your heart. And remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival.